Chapter 4. The Fourth Day. Promise? I promise. The exchange came to him in a dream. But who was promising who? Lazing in his bed, Roxas tried to think through the fog of his dreams. A promise, he mumbled, and slowly sat up. From his window, he could see the usual scene. The town was the same as ever, but today was special. The struggle was a festival day for Twilight Town. Then, Roxas remembered how upset Hayner had been yesterday. His excitement fell flat. Oh, what a mess. It wasn't that he'd forgotten their promise. He just hadn't remembered right then. 4 competitors had made it to the semifinals. Roxas, Hayner, Vivi, and Cypher. Those 4 would fight, and the one who remained would battle the current champion, Setzer. Oh, well, I guess I'd better go. Roxas hopped down from the bed, threw on his clothes, and ran outside. People from all over town were gathered in the sandlot around the square arena set up in the center. Who are you gonna root for? Pence asked Olette. Both of them, silly, she replied. In the middle of the arena, Wallace, who, as the former weapon shop manager usually took the role of MC, was discussing something with the tournament's producer. Roxas better get here soon, Pence remarked anxiously. Hayner beside him hadn't said a word all day. You know, Hayner, Olette started. I'm gonna check the rules, he interjected, and went to look at the bulletin board where the struggle rules were posted. Left behind, Olette and Pence exchanged glances. Just then, there came a loud boom of fireworks, signaling the opening of festivities, and then a fanfare. The struggle finals were about to begin. There you are, Roxas, Pence called, spotting him as he ran into the sandlot. Sorry, If you're looking for Hayner, he's over there, Olette gently pointed out. Roxas nodded and dashed over to the bulletin board. Ladies and gentlemen, struggle friends of Twilight Town, it's time for the summer's most sizzling clash. That's right, today's the day of the struggle and title match, Wallace announced, and the crowd erupted with cheers. Beside the MC stood last year's winner, looking entirely too confident. Who will be the one to break through the ranks and take on our champion, Setzer? It's gonna be Cypher, you know, Rai shouted. And who will win the title match to become our new struggle champion? In contrast to the crowd's fervor, a chill practically emanated from Hayner, who stood balefully in front of the bulletin board. Hayner? Roxas tried to gather the words to apologize for yesterday, but Hayner only shot a brief glance at him and resumed glaring at the board. All right, now it's time to introduce today's fighters, the 4 bad boys who fought their way through the preliminaries. Roxas heaved a quiet sigh under the MC's booming voice. Regular finalists and head of the Twilight Town Disciplinary Committee, Cypher! Hearing his name, Cypher raised his chin, took in the arena with a barely visible smirk. Completely out of nowhere, who knew he'd make it so far this year? Vivi! Vivi headed to the stage from a little ways away from the rest of Cypher's retinue. An underground favorite with an attitude, Hayner! It's his first time in the finals. Hayner! 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 Pence and Olette chanted. Determined to say something, Roxas tried again. Hayner, about yesterday, Get ready, you're up next, Hayner said, and marched briskly toward the arena. And fighter number 4 is a newcomer to the arena, who also happens to be my favorite customer, Roxas! Cheers rose all at once from the crowd, and Roxas walked over to the stage, conflicted. So, who will win this summer's sweltering struggle? Who will take home the grand prize, the symbol of our tournament, the 4 crystal trophy? The 4 fighters in the arena clustered around the bronze trophy set with 4 different colored crystals. And not only that, the winner will have a chance to take on our defending champion. Setzer nodded in response to the title of champion. Now, let the games begin, the MC declared. Cypher and Vivi left the arena, followed by Setzer. Only Roxas and Hayner were left. The producer handed them each an official struggle sword. Hayner took his and pointed it straight at Roxas. Hey, sorry about yesterday, Roxas told him, with his weapon still dangling from his hand. He felt so guilty. He couldn't stand to meet Hayner's eyes. After all, he was the one who'd made a promise and forgotten about it. Seeing Roxas hanging his head like that, Hayner lowered his sword and sighed.
What, you're still worried about that? That was a whole day ago. Let it go already.
That sounded like the Hayner he knew.
Yeah, I have a lot on my mind,
Roxas mumbled. Too many strange things had been happening to him lately. Those dreams, those weird creatures, and forgetting about a promise he'd made.
Sorry, dude. Hey, what am I apologizing for?
Hayner caught himself. That made Roxas smile. Watching from beside the arena, Pence and Olette happily nodded to each other.
Ready, strugglers?
Said the producer.
We're good, right, Roxas?
Yeah. Hayner and Roxas nodded.
Our first match of today's Struggle Tournament finals will be between two best friends, Roxas and Hayner.
Roxas ran to the starting position marked by lines in the middle of the arena. I'm glad he's not mad at me, Roxas thought. Now I can fight for real. The struggle rules were simple. Fight with the provided weapons, and whoever gets knocked over first loses. Anyone who didn't fight fair would be disqualified.
Here goes, Roxas, Hayner shouted. Are we ready?
The MC called.
Let's struggle!
The crowd finished, and with that, the battle began. Hayner didn't waste a second in springing at Roxas. Whoa! Roxas blocked him.
I've been training in secret, Hayner grinned. You're not gonna win against me.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna lose either. Roxas counterattacked, and the toy weapon caught Hayner under his chin. A hint of a frown came to Hayner's face, and Roxas followed up with a fierce body blow.
Ow, 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 ow!
Hayner tried to readjust his footing, but failed and fell flat on his back.
And the winner is Roxas!
Wallace ran up to them and took Roxas's hand, pulling it up into the air. Cheers rose from the crowd.
Not even friendship will slow this kid down, and Hayner put up a good fight too.
Roxas shook his wrist free and went to Hayner, who was still on the ground.
Are you okay?
I lost! Ugh, I can't believe it! Hayner fumed. Roxas let out a tiny sigh of relief and pulled Hayner to his feet. Hayner brushed the sand from his pants.
Man, you really are good.
It was fun fighting you, Roxas said.
Not for me, it wasn't.
Hayner screwed up his face in a pout. You can have some of my fun. I've got fun to spare.
How about no?
At some point while they were bantering, Cypher appeared beside them.
Out of my way.
Roxas and Hayner stepped out of the arena, making way for Cypher. From the opposite side, Vivi stared straight up at him, struggle sword in hand. Under the hood of Vivi's hat, his eyes were hard to see, but they were dark. He looked at the pod where Sora slept. Sora was right there in front of him, and yet he couldn't sense Sora any more than before. What should he do to make that happen? He reached out, but the wall of the pod stopped his hand so that he couldn't touch Sora either. I can feel Sora. So said Naminé, the witch who could control people's memories. Now he felt uncertain. Was she manipulating his memories? No, that couldn't be. He had chosen to keep his memories. He had chosen not to seal away the darkness in his heart. That was why he stood facing Sora in this form now. He had already abandoned his old name, and not only his name, but his appearance too. But he couldn't meet Sora like this. He didn't want to, and he couldn't. He stared at his own hand that had reached out to touch the other boy. Dit. The computer beeped in the dark room.
What, more scum?
Diz complained.
No, that's...
He looked closely at the so-called scum on the screen. That was a figure he knew. He would rather not let it get close. Diz quietly got to his feet and went up the stairs. Cheers rang out from the sandlot. In the arena, Cypher was laid out on the ground after one blow from Vivi.
When did Vivi get so tough?
Hayner remarked next to Roxas's ear. As Cypher got up, dazed, Ryan Fu ran to his side.
Oh, well, the winner is Vivi, ending the fight with a lightning-quick move,
Wallace the MC announced. Amid the thunderous applause, Cypher slowly approached Roxas.
Cypher?
Roxas said tentatively, noticing the grim look on his face. Cypher's eyes flashed and his voice was low.
That's not Vivi.
Huh? Roxas had no idea what Cypher was getting at.
Take him down,
Cypher said icily, and with that he left the sandlot, followed by Fu and Rai. Vivi wasn't Vivi? What was that supposed to mean? Roxas looked at Vivi standing in the arena, and Vivi returned his gaze. A chill slid down his spine. Vivi's eyes seemed to glow from under the enormous hat he wore. Just a little bit frightening.
It looks like Cypher's withdrawn from the match for 3rd place,
the producer told Hayner.
So that leaves me in 3rd? Oh, yeah!
Hayner struck a victorious pose.
Ready for the final match, Roxas?
The producer said.
Yeah.
As Roxas turned to head for the arena, Hayner thumped him on the back.
Don't forget about our promise again.
I know. Roxas waved to him and went back into the arena.
Okay, guys, keep it clean.
The producer handed the toy swords to Roxas and Vivi. The two fighters took their starting positions and faced each other.
And now, the match you've been waiting for, Roxas versus Vivi!
Roxas lifted his sword and Vivi stared straight at him without moving a muscle.
Here we go, let's struggle!
The crowd called out, and in the same instant, Roxas hurtled at Vivi. But Vivi evaded with a high jump, and Roxas thought he would land farther back, but instead Vivi had launched himself forward. Whoa! Roxas barely managed to dodge. Roxas, Vivi called with his sword wavering. That voice didn't sound normal. It was almost mechanical somehow. Vivi? Roxas! Vivi raised his weapon. Roxas moved to block the strike, and then it happened again. The world warped and stopped. Not again! Roxas looked around to see that Hayner, Pence, and Olette were all frozen with their arms in the air as they cheered. Strangely, Vivi's eyes were glowing. Vivi? Light enveloped his body, and then it changed into one of those weird silver creatures. Two more appeared, like they were seeping out of the air, and fluttered to the ground. Now there were 3 of them, writhing closer and surrounding Roxas. These things! He lifted his toy sword, and this time light flashed along it and transformed it into that oversized key, the Keyblade. Guess this means I have to fight them. Roxas slashed at the things with the Keyblade. It was the same as when he'd fought the one outside the haunted mansion. They weren't easy to hit, wiggling and dancing around as they did, but now Roxas felt that he could. As soon as the Keyblade was in his hand, he could feel himself brimming with power. I won't lose to these things. Not a few dusks. The Keyblade shone brightly as it scattered the dusks into nothingness. When the fight was over, Roxas stood, panting heavily, surveying the scene, but time was still stopped. Hayner and the others were still stuck as motionless as mannequins. Now what? Roxas frowned. Wait, how do I know what those things are called? But I do know. They're called dusks, or servants. As he stood there dazed, he heard the sound of someone clapping from behind him. Who's there? He turned to see a man in a black cloak.
All right, Roxas, fight, fight, fight.
The man's tone had a hint of teasing in it, and while the cloak looked the same, Roxas knew it wasn't the same person who had stolen their money outside the train station. But who was he? The man walked steadily closer. So you really don't remember, huh? He said as if he wanted to confirm something, and pushed back his hood to reveal bright red hair. Am I supposed to remember something? Thought Roxas. But I've never seen him before.
It's me, you know, Axel.
Axel? Roxas repeated.
Talk about blank with a capital B. Yeah, this is way too much for the dusks.
Axel went on to himself, stretching his arms to either side. At each hand appeared circle-shaped bladed weapons. Chakrams. Wait a sec, Roxas protested. Tell me what's going on! Axel didn't seem hostile, so he wanted to ask. Why were all these things happening to him? What did it mean?
This town is his creation, isn't it? So we don't have time for the Q&A. You're coming with me, conscious or not. Then you can hear the story.
Roxas could make neither head nor tail of this. Somebody's creation? Going with him? Where? Axel readied the chakrams and Roxas edged backward. And then the world warped again.
Uh-oh,
Axel muttered, taking in the scene. But Roxas couldn't hide his frustration anymore. He hurled the Keyblade at the ground.
What's going on?
The Keyblade struck with a metallic clang and spun away over the dirt. He was so angry. All these things were happening, and he was the only one out of the loop. Something was starting, and he had no idea what. It was unnerving and infuriating. He didn't even know how to stop it.
Roxas.
Axel said his name again, and he looked up. In the same instant, the Keyblade flew back into his hand, as if it was drawn there somehow.
Number 13, Roxas, the Keyblade's chosen one.
Axel intoned, his eyes on the shining Keyblade as he took a fighting stance with his chakrams.
Fine, you asked for it.
Roxas snapped and fell into stance with the Keyblade too.
Yeah, that's more like it.
Axel leaped up and struck with the chakrams, then gave Roxas a flying kick that sent him sprawling. Axel was far, far stronger than the Dusks, but there was something off about him, Roxas thought as he scrambled to his feet. What was it? What made him seem so strange?
Time to heat things up!
A gust of flame shot forth from Axel's hand, knocking Roxas back again.
Haha, nice, Roxas.
Axel was laughing. Why was he having so much fun? Actually, fighting him was kind of fun. Roxas was so fed up with all these things happening to him, and he couldn't stand this Axel guy spouting all this weird stuff with his smug know-it-all face. And yet, fighting him like this wasn't all that bad. What's going on? How am I having fun fighting him? He's obviously holding back against me. Why? What does it mean? Even as his internal monologue questioned everything, he rushed at Axel and swung the Keyblade. Grinning, Axel caught the strike with his chakrams.
Ha! There's the Roxas I know. Axel, what do you know?
Roxas demanded, breathing hard. Axel's face, up close and personal, looked sad for an instant. Or was he only seeing things? But why? What did Axel know?
Can't tell you at the moment,
Axel said.
You can too!
Roxas shouted and swung the Keyblade up. And once again, the world twisted and shuddered. In the middle of the arena, there was a flash of light, along with a strange sound, something electronic. The flash left another man standing there. He wore red cloth bandages over his face and a red cape.
Who's that?
Roxas said.
So it was you.
Axel jumped up and flung his chakrams at the newcomer, but they only bounced off some kind of barrier, a wall of light.
Roxas, this man speaks nonsense,
the man told him in a deep baritone.
Roxas, don't let him trick you,
yelled Axel. Roxas turned back to him. Trick me? Trick me how? Which part is nonsense? Why are these guys coming to talk to me? He didn't know. He hardly knew anything.
Roxas! Roxas! Roxas!
He couldn't even tell anymore which one of them was calling his name. The voices began to feel like they were coming from inside his head. The air warped. His head ached.
Hayner,
Roxas mumbled. He could say his friends' names. Pence. He could think of his friends. Oled. He could feel their friendship.
Hayner, Pence, Olette!
He cried, the names of the people he wanted to see more than anything, so badly his heart was breaking for them. And then the strangeness in the air went away. Axel and the man in the red cape were both gone. Right in front of him, Vivi was slowly falling.
What just happened?
Shouted Wallace, the MC. A wave of cheer rose from the spectators. Huh? How did I get here? Vivi murmured, and then tottered off. Roxas! Hayner and his other two friends ran up to him.
Ladies and gentlemen, Roxas, the winner of this year's struggle,
Wallace announced. Olette bounced with jubilation. Roxas, however, still looked unhappy.
Roxas?
Hayner asked, worried.
What? Are you okay? You know you won, right? Oh, yeah.
So he'd won the struggle, but he didn't feel like smiling at all. At that moment, cheers rose from the crowd again. Setzer! Setzer! The current champion, Setzer, was already there in the middle of the arena, basking in the crowd's appreciation. Roxas, it's starting, Olette said. Finally, he looked up, but he was more concerned with the things he'd just seen than the battle with Setzer. Axel, the man in the red cape, the dreams, the dusks, the Keyblade, and Sora. Was it all connected?
Okay, you two, play fair, said the producer. You're at the top of the bracket. There's only room for one up here,
Setzer replied.
Well, may the best man win.
Roxas went to his starting spot and lifted his weapon. Now that he'd fought that guy, Axel, he felt like he could win. Setzer leaned in as he passed.
Say, Rucksack, how about you throw the match for me? He whispered.
Huh? He blurted. At the same time, he heard Hayner shout at him, Roxas, focus!
Let me win, and I'll make it worth your while,
Setzer pressed. Get real, Roxas retorted, and the fanfare rang out.
Roxas, our new rising star versus Setzer, a defending champion, the MC announced. The winner of this match will be this year's champion. That's bragging rights clear until next year, folks. All right, let's struggle!
The instant everyone screamed that word, Roxas dashed within close range of the taller boy and struck as hard as he could at Setzer's torso.
What?
Setzer fell backward and landed with an undignified plop.
I'm not supposed to.
His griping was drowned out by the raucous cheers, which sorted out into one word. Roxas! 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 Everyone was shouting his name. Roxas! Hayner came running, followed by Pence and Olette. You did it! Olette was hopping up and down with excitement. The townspeople clustered around them.
Congratulations, Roxas!
The producer handed him the championship belt, and then the sizable trophy. The crowd clapped and cheered. Ow, ow, ow! Something had flung Axel back so violently. He had hit the back of his head. Rubbing the sore spot, he got to his feet. He looked up at the dark city lit only by neon signs. The smell of rain hung in the air, and the moon and the sky seemed small from here. That man, the one who had been playing mind games with Riku in Castle Oblivion, he was called Diz. To a certain extent, Axel understood what had happened in that castle, but he didn't know who Diz was or what he wanted. He'd gotten into Naminé's head too.
Smells like him.
That's what the leader of the organization had said. Was there some connection between Diz and that man? And if Axel was right, was there some staggering secret behind Roxas? That would mean Axel had made a huge mistake back in Castle Oblivion, which resulted in bringing Diz and Naminé and Riku together. No way, Axel mumbled to himself, walking along the dark city streets. The city cloaked in darkness, and Twilight Town lit sideways by the setting sun. The two places felt alike. After all, both of them had something to do with Roxas. As for which place suited Roxas better, Axel wasn't sure. The clock tower that crowned the station stood about 50 feet above the ground, and the sunset they could see from up there was even more beautiful than usual. The four friends sat on the ledge that stuck out just a little over the clock face, relishing the glory of the day's victory. Clutching the 4-crystal trophy, Roxas watched the sinking sun. He flicked one of the crystals with his fingernail, and it rang softly. First, he took the yellow crystal from its setting and gave it to Olette. "Oh!" she cried. Then he gave the red one to Hayner, and the green one to Pence. Finally, Roxas pried out the blue crystal and held it up himself to the setting sun. It sparkled brightly, refracting the day's last light. "As promised," he told his friends. "Thanks, Roxas," said Pence, likewise holding his green crystal up to the light. "More treasures for us to share." Hayner held his crystal aloft, his gaze fixed on it as if offering it to the sky. "I've got a present for all of us too." Olette took out 4 sea salt ice cream bars. "All right!" Olette distributed the treats, and just as Roxas accepted his, he slipped. "What? Ah!" As he fell from the height of the clock tower, everything he could see shrank into darkness. Fragment. Wherever you are. A girl in a school uniform walked at an easy pace to the beach. The path wound from the sleepy houses in town over a small hill that blocked the ocean from view. The breeze ruffled the girl's red hair. In the evening, the wind would change, blowing out from the land back over the sea. "Hey, Kyrie," another girl called. Kyrie paused and turned around. The other girl, who wore the same uniform, was jogging to catch up. Her brown hair, curling upwards at the ends, bounced with every step. When she caught up, Kyrie turned back to the sea and they strolled toward it together, slow in the twilight. "Do you feel like going out to the island? We haven't been in so long," her friend Selphie said. "Titus and Waka are all wrapped up in their ball game, and they won't go with me." "Sorry," Kyrie replied, "but not today." "Aw, why not?" They'd almost reached the crest of the hill. "Do you remember those boys who used to hang out with us?" Kyrie said. Selphie had to think for a moment, cocking her head, before she recalled a name. "Riku?" "Yeah," Kyrie nodded, looking at her expectantly. "What happened to him anyhow? I sure do miss him." "He's far away, but I know we'll see him again." "We will," Kyrie told herself. "He promised." "Yeah," Selphie agreed. "Of course he will." The sun was about to set, but the breeze was still coming in from the sea, messing up their hair. "What about the other boy?" Kyrie prompted, without looking at Selphie, her gaze fixed on the ocean. "The other boy. Right. There was another boy too. I'm sure there was." "What other boy?" Selphie looked confused. So she doesn't remember. Kyrie kept staring at the water. Out there, little islands sat sprinkled atop the blue sea. Up until a year ago, they would all climb this hill and sprint full speed down to the beach almost every day. There were little boats at the docks for the kids to row out to the islets, called the Destiny Islands. "The one who was with Riku and me all the time," Kyrie said. "We played together on that island. You know, for a while I could hear his voice. But now it's gone." Selphie looked up at her, mystified. "Now I can't remember his face, or even his name. I feel awful about it. So I told myself I'm not going to the island until I remember everything about him." "Are you sure you didn't make him up?" Selphie said. Kyrie didn't answer. The sun was just touching the horizon. Its last rays streamed toward her, and the wind went calm. All she could see was light. She heard the sigh of the waves, like a name. "Namine?" A voice spoke from somewhere and pulled her into darkness. A boy stood there in the endless darkness. "Namine? What's happening to me?" asked the chestnut-haired boy. Kyrie answered with a question. "Who are you?" The boy looked a little troubled at this. "And that's not my name," she corrected him, looking him in the eye. "I'm Kyrie." "Kyrie, I know you. You're that girl he likes." He looked down. He? He who? "Please, give me a name," she practically begged. "I'm Roxas." "Okay, Roxas, but can you tell me his name?" Just then, everything seemed to haze and warp, like the picture on TV with bad reception. Kyrie blinked. The boy was gone. There was nothing in any direction but darkness, and yet there was something gentle about this darkness. "Come on, tell me!" she cried. A voice answered her. "You don't remember my name? Thanks a lot, Kyrie." "Huh?" It was a boy's voice, but she couldn't see anyone. "I guess it can't be helped." "Fine, I can give you a hint." He kept talking, but the static seemed to rise again. "It starts with an S." "Starts with an S?" Kyrie was about to ask for more hints, but a light from somewhere pierced the darkness. It grew until it covered everything, bright enough to hurt her eyes, and then she fainted again. Namine, the sound of waves. "Kyrie!" Selphie was staring at her, worried. Right, they were on the path to the beach. Kyrie let Selphie help her up and gazed at the ocean again. Kyrie? The islands floated on the water, and beyond them, the sinking sun. "Hey, Kyrie!" She began sprinting down the hill toward the beach. This is what we always did, running down that hill. Through the dune grass onto the sand. We always ran barefoot, too. Kyrie! Selfie struggled to keep up, out of breath by the time she made it onto the beach. Without turning around, Kyrie took a small bottle out of her satchel. The bottle contained a piece of paper, folded up tight. What's that? Selfie asked. With a tiny smile, Kyrie set the bottle down into the water. The receding wave carried it away, and it began to drift slowly out to sea. A letter. I wrote it yesterday to the boy I can't remember. I said that no matter where he is, I'll find him someday. And then, when I finished writing, I remembered we made a promise. An important one. This letter is where it starts. I just know it. She smiled, seeing the bottle bob atop the waves. Wow, Selfie said. I hope he gets it. He will. They both watched the bottle float away. It'll reach you. I'm sure of it. It starts with an S. Kyrie murmured, and then raised her voice into the sea breeze. Right, Sora?
Restoration at 79%. Sora is coming back.
At that, Axel looked up. The one who had spoken was number 3 in Organization 13.
Then
Axel started, but bit down on the question he wanted to ask.
Then what's going to happen to Roxas?
It was an abruptly called meeting. He had suspected what it would be about, but there was no need to reveal his own agenda.
So, we have no choice but to destroy number 13.
Number 7 pronounced coldly.
Indeed, if he has no intention of returning to us,
Number 3 said. The others were silent briefly.
So, we have to eliminate the traitor, is that it?
That was number 9, Demix. Axel's eyebrow twitched. The words grated on his nerves. Actually, everything the others said irritated him. The fact that the members of Organization 13 shared the same goal did nothing to make them close with one another. Some among them had been friendly back when they were human. Whether that made any difference to the others, Axel didn't know. And he didn't need to know. For a member of the organization, there was only one goal: to obtain a heart.
But just because we have no hearts doesn't mean we feel nothing, thought Axel. We just know that we're incomplete somehow. When we were told that what we each lack is a heart, it made perfect sense, because we definitely lack something.
Axel, Number 1 said. Axel stood in response to the rare occasion of their leader clearly addressing someone.
You will eliminate Roxas.
Keeping his mouth shut, Axel looked back at Number 1.
Did you hear me, Axel?
No, I heard you perfectly. A smirk curled the corner of his lips, and then he vanished from the hall.